欢迎各位现场的长官、嘉宾朋友们以及同学们再次回到我们的论坛。在这个阶段，我们要分享的主题是循环经济的环保、社会及经济效益专题演讲。我们要邀请以下的主讲者来为我们进行今天的专题演讲。所以现在让我们欢迎 Director of and Founder of Implement Circular Economy Mr. 的魏，欢迎 ，Let's welcome， 欢迎。
It was Christmas Eve 1968. Buzz Aldrin in the Apollo 8 was flying around the moon. And he took a look out of the window and he thought it was the first guy ever to see the Earth rise from behind the moon. And this is an illegal picture that he made with his own black and white camera. And the next pictures are all in color because then NASA said, no, you have to use our camera. So, remember, it's just about 50, 60 years that we have pictures of the Earth from outside, that we can see where we live. And it's good. Okay, I want to take you... It's an art working here. Okay. I'll try it like this. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I'll try. I'll try to tell you something about circular economy, as we all do. Yeah, okay, I got it. And my name is Douwe Jan Joustra. That's a very good Dutch name. All the Dutch know from which part of the country I come. And I'm working on circular economy now for about 5-6 years. And I'm part of the Accelerator Circular Economy in the Netherlands, as Mark is also. And we try to enhance the quality of thinking in circular economy. And one of the basic principles is that there is no energy problem on this earth. Because the sun sends us every day 9,000 times as much energy as we need for the whole human system. Every moment of the day, 9,000 times the amount of energy we need for our whole system. But we are intellectually and technical not able to use it. So we still use the fossil energy, which also was sun energy, but has changed. So for all the technicians here, 9,000 times, find a way how we can use it. The other question is, of course, resources. What do we do with resources? Well, resources, that's a finite amount of resources that we have. We just have one Earth. And of course we can try in the future, the longer future, to get resources from other planets or from the moon. But for the moment, for the oncoming decades, for the oncoming centuries, we are working on this planet, and this planet is all that we have. So these two are basic ideas behind circular economy. There's enough energy and there's not enough resources. And so we came to the circular economy, and Eva already explained it a little bit. And we worked from the linear system towards a more circular system, in which we look at an economic system. Because, as one of the American presidents said, it's all in the economy, stupid. It's all in the economy, stupid. So if you want to change something, you need to change the economic system. And we are working on that for a long time now. And recently we had a discussion in the Netherlands with a group of scientists, and we tried to identify the main topics that should be researched in the oncoming years. And since you are students and will do some research, I will give you the 10 big questions that still need an enormous amount of research. so that you know where to look for, maybe. These 10 big questions are not very detailed, but they give you an idea around what is going around in circular economy. And I will give you the email of the internet address of this PDF. Yeah. So, does the concept of circular economy mean the same for everybody? No, of course not. Just as we are all different in the linear economy, in the circular economy, we also will be all different. A company will have a different interest in circular economy than me as a consumer, or you as a consumer. But we will be part of the change individually, as a group, as a company, as a government, as a university. We will have to know what is going on. And there's a lot of discussion going on also around circular economy. So when you dive into the idea of circular economy, it will be a deep dive. And the second question is, how can we learn from nature? And why is that an important question? Because nature has developed a system in 3.5 billion years that works, that has closed loops. There is no nutrient lost. Everything is alive and lives. And nature has been able to design life. Whom of you have ever been able to design life? A living product or a living organism. We can learn so much from ecology, from biology, for our human systems. But when we're talking about a different economic system, we also have to think about what is the real new economics. Do we need new economic paradigms? Yes, we will need them. We will do business in a different way. Maybe we will not buy anything anymore, but just have a user's contract, or what we call a performance contract. It's about the use. You don't really need a television set. You want to see the news. You don't want to have a lamp, you want to have light. We ask different questions in the future. Ask for the light on the table. Ask for the news. Ask for sitting facilities. That's the real questions. And policy will have to change also. Governmental policies, but also the policies of big companies, because all our policies are based on the linear system. In the last 200 years, we have developed an enormous, 200-300 years, we have developed an enormous economic system with all kinds of regulations, and all our, for instance, environmental regulations are just about 30-40 years old. We will have to think about what will this new economic system bring us for policy development, or what kind of new economic systems will this bring. How much time do I have? Oh, a lot. There's no minutes on this. For instance, we need to think about the design of economics based on our behavior. When we are not able to identify what our real values are or our real needs are, it is very difficult to have an economy. At least an economy that will last. The current economy identifies all kinds of needs that we don't have. We didn't have the need of an iPad, but someone created it and told us that we need it. And now we all think that we need it. So, you can change, you can bring change, but also in the economic system. Then the design of products will also change. It is great to have a new way of trading in products, have a new kind of economy, and we want to reuse and reuse the materials that are in the products, then we have to take care of the design of products. So it's not just designed for good use, it's also designed for disassembly or reuse. So businesses do not sell anything anymore. They just have contracts with you for use. And maybe you will say, well, that's impossible, what are you thinking about? How can we do that? Well, probably this university already does it. The Xerox machines, the photocopy machines, are delivered these days by companies that say, you pay per copy. And you pay per copy, and we will provide you with the machine, we will provide you with the service, and we will provide you with the performance of the machine. And the user has what he wants to have, the photocopy. But the university doesn't own any of the photocopy machine anymore. So new business models will evolve. And it's very nice to think in a creative way about new business models. Why own a car if you just want to make kilometers? And most cars that are owned stand still for 99% of the time. So why not use the cars that are standing still? And we have now ICT solutions to make that happen. The sharing economy is one of the issues within circular economy. How can you share that kind of facilities with your neighbors? Why have all, a drill and to make a hole in the wall? Every drill that has been bought will work about 12 minutes in your whole life for you. The rest of the time, it's in your shed or wherever. So why do we all want to have a drill? It's a thing of extreme beauty. Okay, there's someone who sees extreme beauty in a drill, but I want to have a hole in the wall. So why not use it when my neighbor has one? Why not use that one? Work on the sharing economy. So, do we need new ways of thinking? Are there big changes coming? Yes, there are big changes coming. Because we have a lot of big installations now for burning our waste, for instance, for burning our coal for fossil energy. What do we do with all these vested interests? That's very expensive just to shut it down. So maybe we can find different uses for it. I don't know what, but you are creative, you are studying, you are looking at the world in a new way. Find us the new ways to use these things. And of course, how can we use much better all the materials that are already around? Urban mining will be one of the key issues in the oncoming period. How can we use the materials that are in our cities, in our living surroundings? And for instance, copper, the biggest copper mine that Taiwan has is probably here in the city, lying under the ground. How do you get this copper back? Is there any ICT student around here? Ah, what a shame. I've got a great business model for you. No, they don't study, they're just here. Google has Google Street View. You know it all. You can take a look in my street, and when you have my address, you can see in which house I live. What Google doesn't have is Google Under Street View. Looking into the ground, what is around. If you want to have urban mining, you need to find out where everything is. So make Google Under Street View and sell it to Google, and you'll be the rest of your life you can sit and do nice things. But how do we organize sufficient energy and sufficient material use? Well, this is a very fundamental question, because thermodynamics learns us that everything will have a form of decay. When you put a nail in your garden, lie it in the garden, after 2-3 years it's gone. And then it will be very difficult to get a nail out of your garden, to construct a new nail. But when you put a nail in a shed or in a desk somewhere, and it's inside, it gets energy from the house. You go looking for the nails, so you do labor in it, and these nails will be there for a long time. I've got nails in my nail box. I got a nail box. They were my grandfather's nails. So when you put in energy and labor, we can use and reuse and reuse and reuse materials. People who study physics always say, yeah, but the laws of thermodynamics. Yeah, the laws of thermodynamics are there. But we are the keen guys, the creative guys, the intelligent guys who can find ways to escape from the thermodynamics. Have a discussion about it with your professor, because they will probably tell you that you cannot escape from thermodynamics. Oh well, then we will find another way to design something to get the stuff back. And of course, it's a pretty fundamental psychological change. We are all grown up with the idea that we need ownership, that we need stuff, that we need to own it. But why? Why do you want to own it? At the moment that you buy your iPhone, the price has gone down immediately. So ownership is loss of value. But psychologically very strong in our head. But we have to change. So, can we do that? Yes, we can. I'm wearing a mud jeans. That's why I walk around in jeans here in Taiwan. This is a mud jeans. That's the concept of lease a jeans. This is not I do not own these jeans. I pay a monthly rental to the owner of the jeans. And why? Because it's made of biological cotton, one of the most scarce resources in the world. And he wants to own and keep ownership of his biological cotton so he can make new jeans out. So let's rethink and redesign. This is the address, and I'll send you the PowerPoint if you want. Well, that's me, but that's not interesting anymore. Thank you very much.
那当然呢，在刚刚的一连串的分享当中，也有非常多现场的同学们想要知道这接下来5位讲者当中他们的背景以及他有不同的这个领域。那我们待会呢会再请陈代表来帮我们做介绍。现在呢，我们马上已经迫不及待想要来看一下我们接下来要为大家带来的专题演讲。这个主题是循环城市案例探讨，循环建筑与社群。我们要邀请到的是 CFO of Metabolic。 我们要欢迎到的是 Miss Sandrine， 我们掌声再次欢迎 Miss Sandrine。
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here tonight, for your invitation to speak here at the university. I really like this question, this question and answer game. So I want to do one final round and see how you respond. So who of you has been to Amsterdam? Oh, really? 2 people. Well. Anyway, great, because today what I'm going to talk to you about is about how we can build circular cities and circular built environments. And I'm going to show you a few examples from practice, from projects that we've been working on in Amsterdam. So if you haven't been, this is your opportunity to learn about Amsterdam a little bit, as in how we do it in the circular economy. And it's also an invitation to you at the same time to come and visit us when you have an opportunity. So I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep this within the amount of time I have. I want to very briefly touch upon why we need to move from linear cities to circular cities. So what we've just heard in other presentations, like the one from Eva, is that cities are actually one of these key points in the system that we need to transform to a circular state. I'm going to explain you why. I'm also going to explain what a circular city is and how that would function using the principles of a circular economy. And I'm going to talk about these two cases in Amsterdam. So, in essence, cities are going to be the future. 75% of the world population will live in cities in 2050. That's an astonishing number. And cities are really the key point in our economic system of innovation and productivity. 80% of the global GDP is produced in cities, and also a lot of the innovation actually takes place in cities. So they're real test beds, hotbeds for innovation, and they will house a lot of people in the future. But as how cities are designed currently, they're absolute resource drains, meaning that cities actually produce a lot of waste. So a lot of resources go in, they consume about 75% of our natural resources, but the main output of cities is actually just waste in the form of materials, but also think about wastewater, and also think, for example, about all the greenhouse gas emissions that stem from economic activities, or activities in general in cities. 60 to 80% of our global greenhouse gas emissions stem from cities. And in this current linear model, that's really something that we have to change. And let me really briefly explain why I am here talking about cities and why I'm passionate about it. One of the key points for me was I was working for the wastewater company in Amsterdam. So they deal with all the wastewater in the city and drinking water. And we were trying to figure out how can we deal with all this water in a much smarter way. Because we were facing challenges. Challenges like more rainfall because of climate change. But also the challenge that was already touched upon very briefly. That, for example, a lot of our food, when we eat it, it ends up in the wastewater in the form of minerals and nutrients, like phosphate and nitrogen. And these actually are very critical to our food system. And so to be able to be providing food in the future, we need to be able to recover these nutrients and these types of minerals from all the activities that take place in cities. So that is actually when that was for me one of the reasons to join Metabolic a few years ago, to actually create a lot more change in this whole in the whole context of cities, because from that high-level work that I was doing at the wastewater company, we had a lot of problems to break the current patterns in the cities. So that is a little bit of a background about why we need to move towards circular cities, and this is also just in reality what we see now, the issues that we're facing now on a day-to-day basis already in cities. Of course, we're dealing with this exponentially growing population in cities, which, for example, leads to informal settlements, or in general, a lot of pressure on the infrastructure and the systems in cities. But also here, for example, you see a recent incident in Amsterdam where people couldn't bike in the streets anymore because of all the rain that fell in the streets, and the sewers couldn't handle with all this rain anymore. And of course, we're dealing with challenges like air pollution, which probably you also experience here in the big cities in Taiwan. So we want to move away from this picture of linear cities towards much more smartly designed, resource efficient, and healthy cities. So let me try to explain to you what then a circular city looks like. Well, in essence, what you can say is that a circular city is exemplary, it exemplifies all the characteristics of a circular economy. So that we heard a little bit about earlier today. But let me go into depth a little bit more, because that's of course quite abstract, and a city is a very small piece of land within our whole world. So how do we create a circular economy within a city? Well, one of the, I have 8 characteristics of a circular city, and one of the key points to try to understand, first of all, is cities will never become autarkic and completely circular by themselves. They will function as very efficient hubs, hosting a lot of people, world population, and also they will be connected, of course, with the hinterlands where we produce food and other locations where we might have industries. So that is important to note. Let me define a few of the 8 characteristics of a circular city. So first of all, in a circular city, 100% of the energy is from a renewable resource. And where possible, cities are self-sufficient as much as possible, and in a lot of cases this is actually possible, but this is always a little bit dependent on the context, in terms of, for example, the potential for renewable energy, in terms of solar, irradiance, or wind. And the second point, characteristic of a circular city, cities have zero waste neighborhoods, meaning that there is no waste actually being wasted like we see now with municipal waste that ends up in landfill or incineration. But actually we see a lot of high levels of recycling and recovering of the materials so that we can establish a circular material flow. Not necessarily within the city, but at least making sure that everything, like think of your tablets, your iPhones that go in a city, that the reverse logistics are there to get these products right away out of the cities again for remanufacturing and high-value reuse. So the third point, a characteristic of a circular city, is that they are designed in such a way that they are rain-proof, that they can deal with a lot of the stormwater and rainfall that we see in cities in general, not of course every city. And very important, what I was just talking about, is resource recovery from wastewater. So that's these valuable minerals that now get wasted and dispersed in the ocean mostly because we are not able to take them out of the wastewater. And also, key characteristic of a circular city is that ecosystems are preserved and that were regenerated, so where possible they're regenerated, and that a lot of the biodiversity that is naturally found in cities is preserved. And this is not just for the integrity of the biosphere, but this is really also to provide a lot of health and well-being qualities to the city, like, for example, being able to be in a park and enjoy fresh natural environment in the city. So, the fifth characteristic of a circular city is that infrastructure is designed in such a way that it's maximum use. So, what does this mean? We see a lot in cities, but actually also in the economy in general, that we build infrastructure that is designed to handle a lot of the peak loads, or that is designed in other ways that makes it very effective. For example, think about electricity. Electricity is generated very far out of the city normally, for example, and it's transported through high currency, high voltage transportation lines, which actually then we're going to convert again to the alternative currents that we get out of our plugs. But along that way, because it's traveling for so long, we're losing a lot of energy. So in a circular city, you would really want to see, for example, a lot of the energy produced very close to where you were using it, so that you don't have so much loss along the way. Also, in terms of health and well-being, cities have local mobility that have no emissions. Maybe we can't even imagine a city how that would look like, but wouldn't that be great if we wouldn't have all these fumes from mobility? And of course also that in the materials that we're choosing, for example in the buildings that we're living in, we want to eliminate toxicity so that we're not being exposed to all sorts of toxic materials. And the final two characteristics of a circular city actually have less to do with the physical material flows that we've talked about a lot already today, but are a lot more about what type of society and economy we want to live in. Because one of the key things here is as well, biodiversity is very important because that creates a certain resiliency in the system, a certain robustness. And that's actually what you want to see mimicked in your cultural, in your environment, your social environment. Because that also brings a lot of stability and a lot of vibrancy to a culture. And a final note about the economy, that how great would it be if indeed a lot of local jobs can be created in cities where people can live close to their jobs and don't have to travel for hours and hours to get to the other side of the city. And also where we're not just talking about financial value that is being generated, but we can also express the values that are generated in cities in other types of, through other types of values, qualifications. Okay, so this is a little bit of a background. Let's make it practical. I'm going to skip these two slides because they get very technical. I really want to get to an example of how can you apply these types of principles to a real case, and how can you redesign an area in a much more smarter way. So I want to take you to the Keuvel. This is a project that we've done in Amsterdam. And it's a brown field, meaning so this was an old industrial terrain that wasn't used by anybody, and it was highly polluted, and the municipality was really stuck with it. They didn't know what to do with it, and so what they decided was to write out a tender for groups of initiatives, a group of initiators to design a plan how to reuse this site in a smart way for 10 years. So what happened was that a group of architects, landscape architects, and us from the sustainability field came together to think about a concept in which we would maximally reuse all sorts of materials on this site. And we actually, what we've came up with a plan to put old houseboats that are normally discarded and thrown away, to put these old houseboats on the land and create a creative office space. So these are little offices for a lot of creative people in Amsterdam. And so the key points here is it's a small site. It's about half a hectare only. And we had also a very small budget. But what we did want to do, we really wanted to use this site not just to create a creative place for people in Amsterdam, but to really showcase a lot of clean technologies and to put really high ambitions of circular development actually on site and show it in Amsterdam. So we envision it really as a clean tech playground, a place where we can close a lot of these material flows and cycles within the city. So here you see a concept of that. And I'm just going to walk you through a few of the key highlights. So as I already introduced you to the circularity performance goals, all of these were applied to this site as much as possible, and fitted in the budget. So we have retrofitted and re-insulated a lot of these houseboats to standards, to high insulation standards. We have put renewable heating systems based on renewable energy, and of course all the energy is supplied by renewable energy on the site. But most importantly also, we're not using a sewer system here, but we're recovering, we're collecting all the wastewater and treating it on the site in many different ways. But the key point to take away from it is that we're reusing the nutrients that we recover from the wastewater for food production. So we have created a system, an urban biorefinery system, where we're reusing the nutrients for food. So this is a little bit of the picture of where you see how these different flows come together. So we're collecting, for example, pure urine from the toilets that we're using in a struvite reactor to create struvite, which is a fertilizer. It's a crystallized phosphate that we can use in the greenhouse to grow tomatoes, for example, salads and herbs. But also we're treating lightly polluted water on the site itself in biological treatment systems. And we're also collecting compost waste from compost toilets in a way that we can also potentially reuse it in the greenhouse. And all of this is still an experiment in a way. We do a lot of research and experimentation on this site, and we work a lot with different parties to learn from the lessons that we learn here about how you close nutrient cycles and material cycles in an urban context. So here is a few pictures from the boats on the land with the solar installations. Here you see the greenhouse, which is almost completed and will have produce very soon. And here you see the struvite reactor, where we have pumped up the urine and where we can harvest the phosphate in a crystallized form. And this is also some illustrations of that this has not just become a place where we can test new clean technologies and learn about circular cities, but actually where it's also become a very interesting and hotspot area for the city of Amsterdam. So this was, for example, at a regular Friday afternoon, where a lot of people from Amsterdam come to have a beer in the cafe. Also really making all of this stuff very tangible for people in the city. And I want to conclude with, well, this is me, with somebody from our Ministry of Infrastructure and Environment, where we were giving a tour to show how we can actually learn a lot from these types of projects that we've done here. And we were talking about how we can scale up the lessons we learn here. And we're doing that in many different projects. One of them is a much larger area in Amsterdam North. I unfortunately don't think I have the time to tell you all about that. But we're also working, for example, on different types of projects, from small-scale housing projects to island projects, such as in Ibiza in Spain, where they're also dealing with a lot of limited resources and trying to figure out a way to move to a much more circular economy. So, this was in short my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to come up to me. Thank you.
当然呢，接下来我们今天有出席了一位重量级的嘉宾来到我们的现场，同时也是我们的主办单位，所以我们要在这边先请我们的长官可以起身向现场的所有同学、嘉宾朋友们起身致意。我们邀请到桃园市政府青年事务局局长陈家俊局长，欢迎，欢迎局长。可不可以今天请局长跟我们新兴学子们说几句话好吗？因为想说局长来到现场，这一次主办的活动非常的成功，也吸引到非常多的同学们，还有我们国内外的与会嘉宾一起来跟我们分享这么多这么棒的一些资讯还有内容。再次谢谢我们桃园市政府青年事务局局长来到我们的现场。那当然呢，如果局长呢也非常想要参加我们今天的活动，那马上我们就来接下来今天的下面一个演讲主题。好，在接下来的主题当中，我们的主题是循环城市案例探讨，循环建筑与社群的议题。我们要邀请到的是 Senior Strategic Consultant of Delta Development Group， 我们掌声欢迎 Dr. Olaf， 欢迎 ，Welcome。
Hello, good evening. To be very honest, I think you've seen enough very complicated slides with very complicated systems. So I'll try to basically tone it down a little and give you just a few things to think about. Because indeed, the circular economy is about systems. The systems are intrinsically complex, as will be the translation of this word from English to Chinese. Basically, I wanted to give you a bit of background. You know now that I admire power tools, like drills, but I have some other things and interests as well, such as that I come from a biological background, such as actually the majority of people here in the forum. Basically, what nature tells us, that even a complex system relies on development and not on growth. The underlying principle of the biological diversity and the history of life on Earth is that with a finite number of building blocks, by projecting increasing quality on that finite number, you still have growth and development. Now, one of the reasons why the circular economy isn't taking off at full steam currently, although it's starting to look like it, is because human beings have an intrinsic inability to deal with exponential growth. I don't want to scare people into the circular economy. I want to make sure people would love to do it. But one of the reasons why a lot of people actually move towards this area is because our current situation is getting grievous and hard in a very short time span from now. And to give you an understanding, I'd like to borrow a little story that I learned from David Suzuki, which basically illustrates what exponential growth is. The story is as follows. You can use this amongst your family and friends, it's easy. Take a petri dish in which you grow bacteria. You put one bacterium in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and this bacterium will divide itself every minute. Now, at noon that same day, this petri dish is totally full. There's just bacteria, there's no more food, and just their waste, that's it. Now, if I ask an average audience which doesn't study, and I do take it you study, you know, when I ask them, so if this occurs between 8 in the morning and noon that same day, when will the Petri dish be half full? Anyone? Okay, a lot of people say, well, it must be right, you know, 11:23 or 10:30, I'm not sure. I say, no, 1 minute to noon. Then is when the Petri dish is half full. Now, 2 minutes before 12, you have this series of events, which means that there's only 25% filled. 3 minutes to 12, 12.5%, so 6.25%. So 5 minutes to noon, there's just like a bit over 3% of bacteria and a 96+% of empty Petri dishes. And one bacterium stands up and says, oh, we're doing it all wrong. We're going to be within 5 minutes. And most bacteria say, you're joking, you see 96% is still available to us. What are you talking about? But now this bacterium divides as it dissolves into 2 new bacteria, but 2 minutes later, some of the smart bacteria start to find out that the old bacterium that was talking 2 minutes ago was probably right. So they see the danger, they start working hard, and that's what we're doing here. We're devising a way to deal with the fact that we need more Petri dishes. Now, 1 minute before noon, scientific bacteria devise 3 additional Petri dishes. Now, when will these be full if we don't change our fundamental behavior? I guess you guessed it correctly, 2 minutes past noon. So, our inability to grasp exponential growth had a lot to do with the fact that we are hard to get out of our, you know, our patterns that have evolved over basically the past 150 years during the Industrial Revolution, and start acting accordingly. So we have this situation where we're now 5 minutes into, you know, before noon, and we are already living on more than one Petri dish, and we have only this one Earth. So in comes the circular economy. And what is the circular economy? If you want to understand it at its basic level, you should understand that it consists of 2 words. Circular economy. What is circular? Well, we've had this described by all these speakers very eloquently. It's about preserving materials that are finite. You have a finite number of building blocks. If you want to grow quantitatively, you know, in an exponential fashion, that is simply impossible. So the circular bit we can think of. We can do that by use of proper technology. We can look at our waste management, and we call it material management. And all of a sudden, when we have pure waste streams, waste management companies understand that rather than incinerate the stuff and sell their kilojoules to consumers, they may actually make a lot more money on selling proper materials in a time when materials become more scarce, because that's the underlying principle. It's about economic growth decoupled from scarcity. Now, how do you have economic growth decoupled from scarcity? There's a few good examples in the current world. If you look, for instance, at you know, staying in a place that is not your own home and pay someone money to do so, it's called hospitality. Now, hospitality businesses have been around, and up until fairly recently, the largest hospitality chain worldwide was the Intercontinental Group of Hotels. Now, they spent 93 years building a total of 640,000 rooms worldwide out of nothing. That's quite a challenge. They were actually followed closely by the Hilton Group, which has like 628,000 rooms available to you worldwide. And they built that over the course of 91 years. Now, up comes Airbnb. In 3 years, these people amassed 650,000 rooms worldwide. 3 years, not 93 years. So how does that come about? It has to do with the fact that once you create abundance, meaning, as Dow rightly put it, you have all these rooms that are available, that are not being used. You have all these cars that are being available, that are not being driven. So there you get your shared economy, which relies on abundance. There is a lot of stuff already out there. We only use part of it. If we create a platform by which peers can basically provide their services to the community at large, you have a chance of growing in a very fast pace from an economic point of view, not a bad idea, but you're using abundance, not scarcity. Now, if we look at waste, if we may call it as such, waste is nothing more than the abundance of our society locked up in a somewhat unwieldy format. It's something we consider waste because of our psychology, moreover. But all these materials that are there basically need to be unlocked from the system in the same way that Uber or Airbnb unlock the potential of superfluous materials, or in this case, the mobility or the hospitality that is out there. And if there's anything you take home from this evening, I'd like you to think over what it means to be based on on abundance rather than on scarcity. Now, if I have time, I can give one small example to answer your question, sir, with regards to how do you actually get a business out of this, because I think that's interesting. And it also answers the question, so why do people, profit, and the planet all get served at the same time? And I'll give you a very simple example. We'll take dishwashers. Our current economic system relies basically on the fact that if you want to have a dishwasher, you buy one. And if I build one which is really good, it's going to be more expensive than the one that is less good. So competition weeds out basically the average demands of people and says, well, you know, if I buy a new dishwasher every 10 years for, say, for 100,000 Taiwanese new dollars, that's great. And that gives me, you know, a set amount of money that I lose every month because I will lose that on owning the machine, and eventually I have to buy a new one at a similar price, etc., etc. Now the business model is that you are the producer of washing machines, and you sell these every 10 years to a person who needs one. Now if I were to say, you don't have to pay for the washing machine, I let you pay for clean dishes every day, all of a sudden, I can think of the idea that if I pay a little less than what I normally would lose on having bought one that lasts 10 years, you know, I can get consumers to pay less for the same service. But as a producer, all of a sudden, the onus is on me to produce something which has a much greater longevity. So if I provide you with something that lasts 20 years, I can get like, you know, twice the amount of turnover from one appliance. And this appliance may cost me maybe 20 or 30% more to build, but as its life cycle stretches over twice the amount of time that normally would be the case, it's a very simple math. The planet is, you know, better off because I use like 35 or 40% less materials and energy to build the appliance. The producer actually makes a lot more money out of this, but it comes in at a longer term. So what happens is, if you do those calculations, and I'm sure you'll come to do that when you start your own businesses or start your own research, if you have a system where the transaction-based model slowly gets taken over by one that is not transaction-based but use-based, which basically accumulates over time, allowing you to phase out all those transaction-based turnovers, you end up with a system that is actually more profitable, less damaging to the planet, and in the end also better for all three of the legs under the stool as you described earlier. And I think if you take that simple message home, then if you still want to get into the technicalities of providing the world with a demonstrator and a hotbed in the urban environment with lots of technical details, then please do come to the sessions tomorrow, because that's when the dreary talk will start. But I think this, for now, would be my key message to you all, and I hope you take it home. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you all. 那接下来呢，我们将针对今天的议题来做一个互动研讨。我们要再次邀请到的是我们喜欢台湾基金会陈慧玲陈代表，再次上台为我们主持今天的互动研讨。
好，谢谢这个主持人啊。那也非常谢谢几位讲者精彩的介绍。那我一个一个再介绍他们上台来。那第一位的是道样先生。那刚才现在为大家补充一下，就是这位道样先生，他是5年前荷兰开始在发展这个循环经济的时候，他把这个概念 带进荷兰的一个重要推手这样子。那第二位呢是 Sandrine 小姐，她本身是Metabolic 公司的财务长，但是她本身也是水和能源的专家。那第三位呢是 Olaf 先生，他刚刚有说他背景是生物学，但是他现在是在建筑还有那个建筑业做顾问这样子，所以他们的经验都非常的丰富。那就是说接下来的时间就会开放给大家。那因为之后的专家的行程还蛮紧凑的，所以可能就不会待留太久，所以请大家要问要把握时间，好不好？来。
我这左手边。
请问一下那个讲者，如果只是单纯透过工业设计，然后去改良用工业设计，然后达到原料100%利用，我想这个应该会有一定的困难。那如果今天是聘用生物学家就是设计一套工业专用的微生物，解决这个分解。因为今天大自然可以完美的运行，是因为有分解者存在，所以它可以让那些废弃物可以，就是说可以让它可以分解，然后再投入到生产者。所以说，今天如果有没有考虑说要设计一套工业专用的微生物？你们觉得这个看法如何？
我想要问一下，你有没有特别想要先问哪位讲者？你有想要问特别问哪位讲者？
现在是生物背景的这一位。
It's okay. Your question is very valid, and it basically boils down to the following: can we supplant all our material needs that are now based on fossil materials and that should be cycling, etc.? But can we base our needs on a biological system as well? Is a bio-based economy a good thing? And the answer is yes. But there's one caveat, one thing that you should take into account. That is, if you say something needs to be biodegradable, that means that you're taking something out of nature that then goes back into nature. And that's fine. But if you allow this to be sort of in use longer than just one renewable season, that allows you to build yet another year's worth of plant-based or animal-based product, you can have a cumulative effect. So if you have things that are easily biodegradable,